Mario RPGs have had a rocky history. Some of these games are masterpieces, and some of them are Paper Mario Sticker Star. Regardless of how great any of these are, each has at least one flaw that stands above the rest. For its time, Super Mario RPG was revolutionary. It blended Square's RPG expertise with Mario's charm perfectly. The world of the Mushroom Kingdom had never felt this alive or this funny, and the combat made even turn-based battles feel engaging, but as much as it nailed tone and accessibility, it had one glaring flaw, and that was the pacing. The game starts off strong, that iconic intro in Bowser's Castle, the surprise of Geno and Mallow soon after, but it rushes from one story beat to the next so quickly that the world never has time to breathe. Just as you start to get attached to a location or side character, you're already whisked away to the next. It's one of the shortest Mario RPGs ever made, and that lack of build-up means the emotional moments don't really land as hard as they could. It's a game that constantly feels like it's sprinting to the credits. You can tell Square wanted to keep it accessible to Mario fans, but in doing so, it never lets its RPG elements truly evolve. Still an incredible game, but one that could have used just a little bit more patience to match its creativity. However, I will still take a shorter campaign like this that's great throughout than a game that just drags on. Paper Mario on the N64 took a lot of inspiration from Super Mario RPG, but really expanded on the formula. It gave us the charming paper aesthetic, lovable partners, and that beautiful storybook presentation. It made the series distinct from anything else. But before you get to all the good stuff, you have to survive the prologue. The game's opening hours are infamous for dragging. Unfortunately, this would not be the last time we will see this either, but I'll get to that later. You spend what feels like an eternity walking around Goomba Village, reading text boxes, and slowly learning mechanics that could have been explained in like 5 minutes. It's an easy start for new players, sure, but it just kills momentum at the beginning. Especially on repeat playthroughs, it's just the section everyone wishes they could skip. Once you're past that, the game's amazing and has some incredible pacing, memorable characters, and one of the best examples of Nintendo humor from this era. But if you've ever booted up Paper Mario and thought, do I really want to play through the prologue again? You're definitely not alone. It's the one part of an otherwise brilliant game that tests your patience before the real adventure even begins. I love Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. This is the first RPG I ever played, and it's one of those games that feels different from the second it starts. It's weird, it has fantastic sprite work, it's hilarious. The Bean Kingdom is full of some of the best writing Nintendo's ever done. The combat feels sharp and inventive, and the animation still has so much charm even 20 plus years later. But for all its creativity, the biggest issue lies in its uneven level curve. The early game throws enemies at you that hit surprisingly hard, teaching you to really learn those timing-based dodges. But once you've got the rhythm down, the difficulty basically flatlines. Most boss fights become pushovers, and by the end you're steamrolling enemies that used to terrify you. It's like the game trains you to become a master and then forgets to challenge you afterward. It's not game breaking, but it's definitely noticeable. Also, the hardest fight in Mario RPG history, at least in my opinion, is in this game, at the end with Cackleta's soul. You start with 1 HP each, and this fight is just absolutely brutal. I don't know how long it took me to beat this, but I do remember that it took me a ridiculous amount of times for 6-year-old me to finally finish this. This is still my favorite game in the series, and one of my favorite games of all time. And as a kid, I didn't really notice this issue. It's more something I noticed while replaying it. I also never really played the remake much, so I can't really speak for that, but I assume it was fixed. There's no question that the Thousand Year Door is often considered the gold standard for Mario RPGs. You can't criticize this game without a millennial having a tantrum somewhere. It's witty, it's goofy, and it has a balance of world design and character work that Nintendo hasn't matched since, well, maybe since Super Paper Mario, but we'll get to that. But if there's one thing even the biggest fans agree on, it's the backtracking. For every brilliant chapter like Glitzville's Mystery, Twilight Town's Curse, or the best chapter, which takes place on the train, there's an equal amount of running back and forth through Rogueport, retracing old steps just to progress the story. And Chapter 4, between the Dupless Twist and the General White Chase, that section practically became a marathon. The backtracking doesn't ruin the game, but it does chip away at the pacing, especially when the story is so strong you just want to keep moving forward. It's a classic case of a nearly perfect RPG being held back by its own structure. Even with the backtracking, this game's still a masterpiece, and the remake / remaster, whatever you think it is, actually greatly fixes this issue by reducing travel time. After the success of Superstar Saga, Alpha Dream tried making a more story-driven sequel. The time travel premise is fantastic on paper, bouncing between eras, using baby versions of Mario and Luigi to solve puzzles, but the game's linearity holds it back from greatness. Unlike Superstar Saga, where you could explore the Bean Kingdom freely, Partners in Time funnels you down one path after another, Like, you rarely ever go back to old areas, and when you do, there's almost no incentive to revisit them. It makes the world feel less alive, more like a checklist of levels than a connected adventure. The mechanics themselves are still fun, and the writing is hilarious once again, but it's hard not to miss that sense of exploration from the first game. You're constantly moving forward, but not necessarily growing along the way. For a game all about traveling through time, Partners in Time, ironically, feels like it's stuck in a straight line. Another flaw I think is worth mentioning as well is how the bros attacks are handled, with items rather than bros points, and I really didn't like that. I still do love this game, and I'm sad it was skipped over for a remake. Back before online shopping was commonplace, I kept going to GameStop looking for a copy of this after I beat Superstar Saga, and it took a couple weeks before I finally found a pre-owned copy, so this game is still one of my favorites, even if it is pretty linear. For anyone who has watched any of my videos before on any channel, you know I love this game.
Super Paper Mario is my favorite game of all time and also one of the first Wii games I ever played.
But even with that, I do have to acknowledge this game is far from perfect. This is one of the strangest games Nintendo's ever made. Super ditched turn-based combat entirely for a 2D platformer RPG hybrid, and for what it's worth, it works surprisingly well. The story is by far the best in the series. The characters are some of the most creative, and Cowbelly remains one of Mario's most interesting villains. But for all its ambition, the game's difficulty, or lack thereof, holds it back. Once you get used to the flipping mechanic, there's almost no challenge. Enemies die in 1 or 2 hits most of the time, puzzles are pretty straightforward, and boss battles often end before you've even figured out their patterns. I mean, just look at that battle with Bone Chill. It's a game where the writing and world building outshine the gameplay itself. It's not that being easy is always a bad thing. Super wanted to be accessible, but having just stronger enemies and less predictable attacks would have made this game even better. This is still very much an RPG, even when people say it's not because it rewards you for combat, but you could probably beat this game fairly easily without even leveling up. Now, this is the peak of the Mario and Luigi series for a lot of fans. For me personally, it's probably my third favorite. I know it's controversial. Bowser's Inside Story is a really fun and unique game, and controlling Bowser while Mario and Luigi run around inside his body is an incredible concept that the game totally nails. But for all its brilliance, the one thing that drags it down is the minigames. Don't get me wrong, the first time you shoot air into Bowser's lungs or play around with his muscles, it's clever, but by the 10th time it starts to feel like a chore. And the infamous carrot eating minigame, the thing has broken more touchscreens and patience levels than maybe any other moment in the series. I was literally stuck on this for weeks as a kid, and I know I'm not alone in that. Please let me know in the comments if you were as well. It's annoying, unskippable, and honestly stops the pacing dead in its tracks. It's the kind of flaw that sticks out in a game that otherwise gets so much right, and this also was mostly fixed in the remake, but the only issue with that is no one actually played it. It's one of the worst selling Mario games ever because some genius decided to release this on the 3DS in 2019. Where do I even start with this one? It's hard to pick one biggest flaw in Sticker Star because, frankly, this game's got a sticker album full of them. For many fans, this was where Paper Mario lost its identity. I know a lot of people say Super, I disagree with that. Gone were the witty partner characters, the clever stories, emotional writing. It was just replaced with stickers, bland levels, and a battle system that forgot why you'd even want to fight in the first place. Every sticker is a one-use attack, and you don't earn experience points from battles, so what's even the incentive to fight? There's none. You're better off avoiding enemies entirely, and when you do have to fight, bosses often require special thing stickers you might not even have, forcing random backtracking through earlier levels. Add in generic environments, bland toads everywhere, and a plot that feels like it's straight out of New Super Mario Bros., and you've got a game that feels like it was designed by a committee that never actually played the originals. So with all that being said, I think the combat is the biggest flaw, just the complete lack of any incentive to battle. But honestly, you could go with a lot here. Like, you could go with the bland story, the bland design, the backtracking, like, there's a lot you can choose here. There are glimpses of personality here, like the visuals are still charming, especially for a 3DS game, the soundtrack is decent, but overall, Sticker Star just does so much more wrong than it does right. A lot of the games in this video I can maybe talk about for a few minutes about what they do wrong, but I think I could probably make like an hour-long documentary talking about Sticker Star's flaws. Dream Team had a lot of promise. 3DS hardware allowed for beautiful visuals, creative dream sequences, and some truly funny dialogue. But before you can enjoy any of it, you've got to sit through one of the longest, most drawn-out openings in any Mario game ever. Dream Team doesn't just hold your hand, it makes you have your own dreams after falling asleep because the beginning drags on for so long. I mentioned the slow prologue in Paper Mario and the issue returns here, but it actually might be even worse. Every new mechanic comes with multiple explanations, demonstrations, and reminders, and by the time you're actually free to explore, you've forgotten half half of what the game just taught you. It's like Alpha Dream wanted to make sure no player ever got confused, but they overcorrected so hard that it just takes the fun right out of the first few hours. Once you finally get into the groove, the game opens up a lot, and this is a really underrated Mario game. Like, I had a lot of fun with this, but a lot of players just don't make it that far because the first few hours just hold your hand so much. Another flaw, depending on who you ask, is that this game is just pretty long. Like, it feels like by the end you kind of just want the game to be over. And I know some people might say, well, you just get more gameplay, how is that a bad thing? And just like with a TV show that goes on for too long, like sometimes a game is better off being a little bit shorter. This one's kind of the oddball of the bunch. Like, Puzzles and Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition is basically a mashup between Nintendo's Mascot and a popular mobile Match 3 RPG. Mechanically, it's fine, like, it's fun for a bit, but visually and stylistically, it suffers from being the most boring looking Mario RPG ever made. You probably don't even know this exists, and if you did, you probably forgot that it existed, and if you didn't forget that it existed, you're probably surprised it's even here. It uses the same sterile new Super Mario Bros. Aesthetic we'd already seen for nearly a decade at that point. Just the flat backgrounds, overused enemies, and environments that look copy-pasted from the Wii U or 3DS. And when you mix that with Puzzles and Dragons' repetitive gameplay loop, you get an experience that's completely functional but pretty forgettable. Like, it's not a bad game, it's just lacking in personality, and it barely feels like a Mario title. Like, imagine if Paper Mario's art style got replaced with the stock clip art. Like, I don't think it would automatically become a great game or anything, but that would make it a lot more memorable and have a lot of fan service to fans of other Mario RPGs. When Nintendo announced there would be a crossover of Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi, fans were rightfully excited. Imagine fan favorite characters coming back and interacting with each other, like Count Black, Grodus, any of the partners, Shroobs, you name it. Or imagine some of the greatest songs from the Paper Mario series coming back. Instead, we got none of that. We got no unique environments, no fan favorite characters, no Paper Mario music, no cool references. It was just a sanitized Mario and Luigi game with no paper characters except the basic ones. There were other flaws, like the clunky papercraft battles or Toad hide and seek, but for me, the wasted potential of this game is by far the biggest flaw. Color Splash was Nintendo's first real attempt to fix Sticker Star's mistakes, and to its credit it actually worked in a lot of ways. The humor was improved, the writing was sharper, and the world had some creative ideas even if it was still fairly generic, but the one thing that still felt really poor was the battle system. You still don't earn experience from fights, so the incentive problem remains. I mean, I guess you get an extra paint storage, but that barely does anything. But this is a different criticism than with Sticker Star where there was no incentive to battle. Like, the bigger issue here is that it's just so clunky. So here's how you battle. You select the card, hold it down to paint it, and then swipe up. It's just slow, tedious, and it adds an unnecessary step to every single battle. It's not bad once or twice, but when you're doing it for the 100th time, you start to realize why so many people simply ran past enemies. Like, maybe at least if there was more incentive to battle, it wouldn't be as bad, or maybe if they changed it up so you had different kinds of attacks, it would be better. But no, it just gets extremely repetitive. To its credit though, Color Splash is gorgeous, funny, and a big improvement over Sticker Star, but it's still a very flawed game and shares most of the same flaws as Sticker Star. Nobody expected this crossover to work, like Mario and Rabbids in a tactical RPG. It sounded ridiculous, but this is actually a really fun game, and something I feel is pretty underrated nowadays. Like, this is like nothing else in the Mario series, so you could say whatever you want about it, but it is very unique. But this game is also just weirdly difficult in some places. Like, it has some serious difficulty spikes, especially in boss fights or challenge missions where a single mistake can just derail your entire strategy. Early missions feel like a breezy tutorial, and then suddenly you're just being absolutely destroyed by rabid Donkey Kong. It's like the game forgot who its audiences was halfway through development. Like, maybe I'm just not great at tactical RPGs, like I've never played XCOM or anything like that, and it doesn't feel unfair, but the balance is just kind of all over the place. Like, you go from it being easy to just needing to replay boss battles over and over again. Still, for what this game is trying to be, like, it has a surprisingly few amount of major flaws. Like, if you don't like tactical RPGs, you're not gonna like this, but for what it sets out to do, this game is pretty good. The Origami King was supposed to be the Paper Mario redemption arc. It brought back personality, clever writing again, and more emotional moments that felt like a love letter to old games at points. And we finally started to get some more unique characters and characters with personality, like of course Olivia and King Ollie. There was Bobby, who has a generic design but at least has a personality, and the world design was the best since Super Paper Mario. But then for the third game in a row, I just gotta talk about the combat. Like, this has been a very big flaw. Nintendo clearly wanted to experiment with the ring-based battle system, and conceptually it's cool. You spin the board to line up enemies like a puzzle, then strike them all at once. The problem, just like with Color Splash, is that it stops being interesting after the first few hours. Like, there's no real reward for fighting since, once again, there's no XP, and it just feels like busy work. Like, I think it's an interesting concept to have have puzzle solving like, in the battles, but just not over and over again. Like if it was at least varied, that would make it better. And as for other flaws, it's basically the same as Sticker Star and Color Splash in that regard. Obviously there's less flaws, this game is more open, it has a better story, but it just is missing a lot of what made the first 3 games great. And it really is frustrating because there is a lot to love here, but there's just so many things that bring it down because I think there's only so much Nintendo can actually do with the Sticker Star style of game. When Sparks of Hope dropped, it felt like Ubisoft had listened to every complaint from the first game. There was bigger worlds, more freedom, more characters, no grid movement. It was everything fans asked for, but in the process, they quietly removed one of the most fun parts of the original. Each character used to have their own unique arsenal, like Mario's blaster, Luigi's sniper, Rabbid Peach's explosives, and customizing them was a huge part of what made Kingdom Battle addictive. And Sparks of Hope, those weapons are just gone. Everyone's stuck with the same default loadout for the whole game, and it makes upgrades feel flat and progression less satisfying since your characters never really change. The rest of the game is still great, the writing's improved, the visuals are gorgeous again, and the expanded strategy options are fun, but when you take away something as core as weapon variety and a tactical RPG, you lose a bit of the excitement that made the first game so replayable. It's a small omission, but one that leaves a noticeable hole in the experience. And finally, we arrive at Brothership, which is the long-awaited revival no one thought we'd ever see. After Alpha Dream's closure, fans assumed the Mario and Luigi series was gone for good, but Nintendo brought it back, and it looked fantastic if you like this art style. Like, I'm still kind of mixed on it. The writings, animations, and environments were definitely a step up over Paper Jam, but the biggest talking point about this game is just how Luigi is controlled. Rather than being a fully playable character like in past games, Luigi feels more like an AI companion, automatically following Mario's lead instead of sharing equal input. It streamlines movement, sure, but it also removes a lot of the hands-on coordination that define the series. Like that two-brother teamwork feeling, swapping moves, juggling attacks, solving puzzles together, now feels a little bit too automated. And this isn't to say that you don't do anything with Luigi, like you still press B to make him jump, but just look at Superstar Saga, like how the brothers could go off on their own, how they control differently, and it's just kind of sad that that's something that's been removed here. And that's not a deal breaker, the game's overall quality still is pretty good. Another big flaw is the tutorial once again, like the beginning part of this game does drag on. I can't exactly point out what it is, but something just seems missing here from like the first 4 Mario and Luigi games. Like it's 100% better than Paper Jam, but I still prefer the first 4 games. And I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's the art style, the music, which I actually do like the music here, or something completely different. I know it's probably going to be a long time until we get into the Mario and Luigi game, but hopefully we at least get Partners in Time remake on Switch too. And also I do want to briefly just talk about the Super Mario RPG remake since it's a very different game from the original. Like I didn't mention the Mario and Luigi remakes because they're basically the same game with better graphics. This actually changes a lot. And I'd say like the lack of difficulty is one of the big things. Like it was a very easy game outside like the last part. I didn't play the original too much, but it was a long time ago, so I don't remember how different it is. And also, a lack of new content is something that I've seen a lot of people have problems with. Because when I say that this is a very different game, I don't mean that mechanically or story-wise it's a very different game. It just looks very different because this game came out over 25 years after the original, so obviously it's going to be very different. With the Mario and Luigi remakes, there was less time in between when they came out. But anyway, just wanted to mention that briefly. And that's the list. Like, there's going to be a lot of flaws in any game, especially if you really start to nitpick. You don't have to agree with everything I said here. This is just personally my experience playing each game, what I thought the biggest flaw was. But I do want to know your opinions in the comments. And if you did enjoy this, consider subscribing and liking the video. And also joining my Discord if you want to suggest more ideas. And also consider becoming a channel member for just a couple bucks a month. Thank you for watching Domainy, and I'll see you next time.